My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sankaran, Guru Piran Nyo, fellow Jnanis. Today I'm going to continue with Mahan's Kundalini meditation technique. And the last three satsangs, I covered the different stages of initiation. And I'll kind of summarize that and then take the discussion a little bit more deeper. So, and I hope that we can have a much more deeper conversation and discussion after this satsang. So, this satsang and the last three satsang, we talked about the technique that Mahan developed to raise that Kundalini force in all of us. As I mentioned, we have the creator, the creative forces, the creations, and our biological body, and so are all the other biological body, are manifested from the creator, and there are various creative forces that is put in place to create the creation. And one such creative force is life force itself, or what sometimes we call it Kundalini or Kriya, or many, many names. So these great saints and sages then thought about this very, very carefully and said, look, how do we get back to the source of the creator? Given that in our normal day-to-day life, we miss it. And they develop different techniques to be able to understand the creation, the creative forces, and then trace back the creative forces to its sources to discover the creator. And this is the journey that many masters have taken. And there's no difference with Jnanavalal Paranjali Mahan, the guru that, taught this Kundalini meditation technique. So here I'm going to, take you through this summarize Mahan's technique and then go a little bit more deeper on how this meditation technique has an impact on the physiology of the human being, particularly the human brain, the human mind, the human body, and the human personality. So we'll look at the physiological changes, and then later on I'll cover how it has an impact on our mental state, our intellectual state, and our spiritual state. So here is the summary of Mahan's Kundalini meditation technique. Mahan spoke about the first stage of this initiation, rising the Kundalini force. And we know that, and I've given this lecture over the last 2-3 lectures of this stage. This stage has got profound impact, how he raises his technique of raising the energy from the base right up to the third eye. And that has got significant impact on the brain, structural changes to the brain and the mind. And what happens is that as you practice this for the first 14 days, the mind becomes more focused. The mind starts, as parts of the brain starts firing, you see there's an intellectual growth that happens, things starting to make sense. But that requires a peaceful mind, a quiet mind, a mind that is anchored on that vibration that creates that growth in that gray matter in the parts of the brain, the frontal part of the brain, that enables us to have greater bandwidth of analysis, understanding, vichara, introspection, contemplation, reflection, and it reinforces our meditational practice. So this is the first stage I covered. You can refer to that. Then I covered the second stage, where after 14 days, the guru or the teacher initiates in the process of bringing the energy from the third eye to the base eye, and you practice that for about 6 days. This is called the descending step. One of the things is that the flow earlier, stage 1, the guru brings the flow of the energy through the spinal cord to the third eye. Now he brings it back down to the base eye or the Muladhara. So now the channel of flow of that electromagnetic or Kundalini force is elevated because all the neurotransmitters now are stimulated, and you see that the flow becomes more magnified. The flow has always been there, but now through this practice, it becomes more intensified and more magnified. So you can say that the highway to that infinity, you become more aware of it. What that does is that as the flow improves, that connectivity enables a lot more flow of electrical signals and pulse, and you see that the brain plays a key role in stimulating the various hormones that has got an impact on many of the organs, cells, and the nerve system. And once that highway flow is very smooth and unhindered, you see that the body becomes more healthy. You become more alert, the brain becomes healthy, the body becomes healthy, you become more alert, more sharper, and you feel a lot more energy and stamina. So the descending step is very important to improve the health of the body. After that practice, then Swamiji teaches us how to raise it after that 14 days plus 6 days. The third stage is given where the Guru brings back that energy to the third eye and back to the top eye, right? And the top eye is shown in this picture here. And this is called the cleansing step. The Guru does a number of things to cleanse that system from all the kind of hindrances and the thought processes. And when that energy is brought to the top, you see that parts of your brain is stimulated. There's a nerve that is flowing through. And we see that the pineal gland and a number of other things that are stimulated, it releases important hormones. And that has a very profound impact on the brain and the body. The brain becomes, the mind becomes more kind of a calmer, more peaceful. You start getting glimpses of blissful experiences, more universal experiences. And this has been documented in many of the scientific studies. When people practice meditation, they get this blissful, nice feeling. Swamiji calls it sandosam, this unconditional joy and happiness that comes to our own life. So this, you get a blissful and universal experience. You get a kind of a transcendental experience. So initially it's glimpses, and then it becomes more profound, not just during meditation state, but over time, even during your waking state, you feel a kind of a happy, joyful, kind of a spectacular feeling. So this is actually due to the structural changes that are taking place in the brain, which I covered in my previous satsangs in very detail on parts of the brains that actually, has an impact on our emotional state, and the well-being of the brain and our mental state and the spiritual experiences. So we covered this. What I want to then cover, so here are some of the kind of pictures that I was able to acquire on how Mahan, initiates and how he raises this force, first stage, second stage, third stage. The middle picture is one of the pictures that one of the older technique of, increasing that energy flow. One has to squat like that to put pressure on the base to get that base feeling. But today, Mahan uses casuarina seed. The gurus use the casuarina seed to stimulate that experience of the second stage. But if you want more detail, you can go to the lecture, particularly on the second stage. So we see that, there are different, techniques that has been practiced across the globe. Here is Swamiji's practice of the 3 stages of meditation that I myself have put to practice more than 40 years, and there's tremendous benefit, and so many people have benefited from this practice. So what is this? So I want to come back to, if you go earlier, the picture, you see that we covered the Muladharam, we covered the third eye and the top eye. But there is an eye in the back here called the nape eye. And what is the function of that? And I also covered that in my previous satsang, but I want to relate this to Mahan's teachings, right? So you see that what Mahan has done is through this meditational process, he has actually helped connect all the Muladharam, the base eye, the third eye, the top eye, and as that flow goes, it actually stimulates that nape eye. And I'll explain that again in a little bit more detail. I've covered this, but I want to recap that. So if you see here, this is the flow that one gets when one practices this Jnanavala Paranjali Mahan's 3 stages of the initiation. As after the 21 days of practice, as you practice that third eye and that top eye, the flow becomes very intensive. And you can feel that body heat, you can feel that intensity, and you see that the vibrations become more stronger. Your mind becomes more quieter, more peaceful. And if you are reading, if you are a teacher or professor or engineer, you see that your mind becomes more focused. You're using your mind for learning. It becomes more sharper and so on. But what happens is that when that flow is happening, the flow actually stimulates parts of your brain because it has to pass through that station, which is the nape. It's like a train station that is passing through, the trail track that is passing through the different stations. And one of the stations is in the back of the brain called the cerebellum. And Mahan actually speaks about this in his book. So what is this cerebellum? Right? So this cerebellum is there, that point, the back of your brain here, right? So if I look at it more in detail, that is that part of the brain. It is also shown in Mahan's book. It is also covered in my previous satsang. This is the 9th position out of 12. This is the 9th position in the brain, right in the back there. Right? And this part of the brain, as that flow goes through, it stimulates the energy fields there, the flow of blood, the flow of electrical signals, and that place becomes stimulated. This cerebellum has a very important function for human beings. It coordinates our movements, including the fine movements, eye movements, motor coordination, the non-verbal communication. It also helps us with the balance of the body and reflexes. And it sometimes is called the little brain, right? And even our body posture, all those things, the asanas, things, we cannot do it without a very strong cerebellum. And you see that if this part of the brain is not functioning properly, we have balance problems. And also it has an impact on our memory, right? So meditation actually helps us, meditation, mindfulness, all these practices, yoga practices, sitting in these asana positions, actually stimulates that energy flow through that highway, the red color thing that you're seeing. But it actually strengthens that station in the back, which we call the nape eye or the cerebellum. And that stimulation actually enables the growth of cell, the growth of gray matter, and that increases. So what we see here is that the nape eye is the center of that cerebellum of the brain, And what happens when we practice this Mahan's meditation method, right? A few things happen, but you need to know what is that, why you're feeling the pressure, why you feel kind of a circular motion there, and a kind of an energy flow magnified there, because that's that station there, like the tracks that is passing through, the neural connectivity that is passing through is stimulating that part of the brain. So the nape is that center of the cerebellum, right? Very important for the health of the body, as we saw earlier, the coordination, the balance and so on. This place also stores all our experiences and learnings. It's called the memory bank, right? And every experience, from the time the brain has developed and the time where even in the mother's fetus, all those memories and all the learnings are stored in that memory bank. So that is why sometimes you see that when a child is born, nobody teaches the child how to flip or stand up. So that is imprinted in that memory bank, right? So there are a lot of things that is conditional learning and unconditional learning that are stored in that memory bank. So when the life force passes through, which is actually our Kundalini force, passes through that from the third eye to the Muladhara and back, it stimulates through the back, our spinal cord and the backbone. It stimulates the cerebellum. So what happens is that when we regularly practice that flow, when it stimulates that part of the brain, we see that the electromagnetic forces actually generates that energy field, and you see that the neural connectivity becomes stronger, more longer. The telomeres, which is the end of that, synapses become more longer and connected, and you see that uh, the flow of energy becomes greater. And when that happens, the cells around there becomes, the growth level becomes higher, and the density of that part of the brain increases. Why this is really important is as we age, we see that the flow sometimes is hindered because of all kinds of health issues, challenges. Most people stop exercising, stop meditating, stop reading. So the flow sometimes is not smooth or hindered. So parts of the cell is not getting enough nutrients and energy, and you start seeing parts of that cells are impacted. So a lot of our memories we start forgetting. So as we age, it is very important to intensify our meditation. So it strengthens that part of our brain. It strengthens our memory bank, right? And you see that as you practice meditation intensively, your memories become so crystal clear. Even you remember the memories, the early ages of your memories, 3, 4, 5 years old, becomes very profound. That means that whatever you learn, whatever thoughts you have, become much more deeper, much more stronger. So this strengthens our memory bank. So this meditation actually helps deepen our memories and all the learnings that we have had since conception and then becoming, a material being. And ultimately, becoming independent, beings that are charting our own journey. But what is really interesting is that all our thoughts are stored like a library. For some people, the library is not well stored, not well organized. So when you want that information, it's very difficult to get that information, right? But for a meditator who every day, every moment is introspecting, contemplating, reflecting, meditating, and doing service for the greater good of people, the structural changes in the brain, particularly in the nape, becomes very intensive. We see that the memory bank becomes like a well organized, well sorted, well resourced library. So when you want something, you know exactly what information you need, where that information is, and you see that you can access it, that information very, very easily. Even before you are starting to make any decisions, that information is readily available for you to review and use it to make strategic decisions. So you see that your memory becomes a powerful knowledge bank. But more importantly, that when it's well organized, today we live in an AI world, but even before AI, our brain is already operating in that way, that the pieces of information, it is able to connect and see the bigger picture. You have pieces of information that are stored, but now you see that that storage becomes more porous and the information are interconnected to give you a greater and deeper understanding of the experiences and the knowledge. And this is the powerful part of this Mahan's meditation method that I experienced and I learned. You have all these memories, and suddenly you learn something A, you learn B, you learn C, and suddenly one fine day A, B, C combines to give you something far greater. And this is exactly what Mahan went through. In his quotes, he said this very clearly, Ipparamum apparamum ega paraparamum enno nan arindhen. He says, I was able to understand the inner cosmos and the external cosmos all into one to see that realization in a much more profound and greater way. And this is the power of this Mahan's meditation method, of how it stimulates the nape eye, the eye that gives you fantastic, deeper insight of your self and the things around you by storing that information. But to store that information, the hardware must be really good. The software is operating very efficiently. And more importantly, that software is able to interconnect like your AI systems that is able to give you meaning and purpose and understanding. That is the power that I experience of practicing this Mahan's teachings. And you can take abstract ideas, and when they come together, it becomes so clear. So this Kundalini meditation, including the discovery of God, including the discovery of the Creator. Remember, I started this lecture by saying that these great saints understand all the creation. Now they have a very good understanding of the creative forces. You know, the creative forces looks very separate, but because of that memory bank, because of that nape eye, because of the cerebellum now becoming a solid hardware with a fantastic software evolving, they were able to see those creative forces not as separate creative forces, as combination of those creative forces to give you a greater insight into not just the creative forces, but the creator itself. And that is what this great Mahan has shown, that through this meditation method, he was able to give a fantastic insight into this concept of God, this creator, the creative process, and all the creation, including us. So anyone who practices this will have a fantastic understanding of the physical body, the hardware, the mental body, which is our software, our spirit, which is the master software, and tracing back that master software back to the universal software, which is the creator itself. That whole process is called yoga. That whole process, yoga means to be in union with, to understand that journey of union. This is what yoga is. And Mahan has used this Kundalini yoga, that yoga of understanding the life force that powers all creation. This life force called Kundalini is then deciphered to trace back to the creator itself. And this is what the essence of Mahan's meditation method and the I God philosophy. So, if you really want to discover, I say really, really want to discover who you are, practice this great master's teachings, his meditation, and you see that over time, you'd have a fantastic understanding of who you are, what the purpose of your life is, what nature is and the creative forces, and how it powers us, and how it powers our life, and how that DNA of the creator is embedded within all of us. And this is what this great master's non-kadavul or I God philosophy is. One will not be able to understand this philosophy if you are not practicing meditation intensively, particularly not just mechanically practicing it, but practicing it with an introspective mind, with a contemplative mind, with a reflective mind, with an intensive tapas of meditation allocated every day at every moment, whenever you have time. And more importantly, see your biology is not your physical personality, but transcendental to that, beyond that, to see everything in this world with the divine lens. And that's what the service is. Service is about not just service, supporting, helping people, but actually stepping into the shoe of that spiritual realm to discover the self is far greater than our material biology. And this is the wonder of this great master's teachings that I've learned over the more than 40 over years. And I hope that you discover that Mahan in you through this practice. Sandosham.